I remember like it was yesterday. It was a crisp autumn morning, lots of leaves in the air. It was November, and I was just 9. I was happy it was Saturday. My mom had to run some errands, and my dad was at work surprisingly on a Saturday. I had to take care of my 1-year-old twin sisters, so did my older sister. I was the only boy child. I used to watch Blue's Clues. It was only 2001, so I wasn't really surprised that my sister suggested a VHS of it. But there was something funny about it. Steve was saying the title of it in a depressed emotion. The top of the speech bubble was ripped off, showing a red VHS. The back sides were all just plain white. She said that Mom got it for us to watch. When we pop in the VHS where the coming soon to video cassette was supposed to be, it was just a timer for when the feature presentation was coming. It kept shooting to static most of the time. Instead of the Paramount feature presentation that I expected, like on all of my Rugrats VHS tapes, instead it was just the old Paramount Mountain, sitting there motionless. We talked to each other thinking if this was special. After 20 seconds of waiting, the Nick Jr. logo came on. The Nick was just walking in straight motion, with the Jr. following along. This was silent, and it went on for about 10 seconds. My little twin sisters were getting tired, so we stopped the VHS and put the twins into their cribs. As we got back to the living room, the VCR suddenly said play. We didn't even hit the play button. The Nick Jr. logo was still going on for 20 seconds. Then face was shown on screen. He had a frown on his face, and after 5 seconds of silence, he spoke.
Hi there! Blue! Coming up next, Nick Jr.!
I was so confused. I told Julia to eject the tape. She went to the VCR and pressed the stop button repeatedly. It was no use, so we kept on watching. The Blue's Clues intro began, but instead of the joyful guitar music, there was a depressing piano tune. Steve then popped up in the window and spoke in a voice that sounded nothing like Steve.
Hi out there! Come play with me!
Blue was also in cheesy CGI instead of hand-drawn animation. As the camera zoomed into Steve's house, the door opens to reveal a man who looked nothing like Steve. He looked like Tom Hanks, but in the same clothes as Steve. Then the TV burst into static, and when the episode came back on, Steve was back to normal. Steve happily said, "Hi! Come on in! We won't be playing Blue's Clues today!" The scene then showed a grotesque corpse of Blue. She was on her back, belly all torn, with her intestines all tied around her. Her eyes were popped out of her sockets, revealing yellow CGI eyes. I almost threw up, but I held my puke. Julia was not even sickened by this, it's because she had a thick stomach. It then cut back to Steve. He was smiling, very big, very wide, at a rate where CGI wasn't that realistic with the effects in 2001. Then he said, "You kids will learn about death." Julia and I talked if this was actually made by Paramount. He went over the side table drawer.
Blue's Clues, I'm so excited!
A loud gunfire rang. The screen then changed to black as we heard Steve laugh in a soft voice. Then we see Mr. Salt and Mrs. Pepper. Mr. Salt had red eyes, and Mrs. Pepper had white eyes with sharp teeth. So realistic, it feels like you can actually touch them. Steve asked if they want any juice. The couple said yes. They drank it, and liked it. "Yum, what is this?" Mr. Salt asked. "Cyanide and poison, of course," Steve replied. Suddenly, the two were coughing up salted pepper out of their mouths instantly, like if they were coughing up blood. Julia and I watched in horror as the two alive animate objects suffered to meet their fate. Steve was satisfied with his accomplishment, then headed outside. Shovel and Pail were in the backyard, sat over a live-action clock that resembled tickety-tock. Pail said that she missed Periwinkle. Periwinkle was on the show for only a year back then. Steve came out and said in an old man's voice, "You're next." He closed his eyes for 3 seconds and opened them, revealing bloodshot eyes. Shovel and Pail screamed and ran away. Steve sang Ring Around the Rosie in a creepy little girl's voice. He found Pail and grabbed her by the handle. Shovel started crying to witness his sister's death and sprinted away. Shovel ran to the front yard to find Mailbox. Shovel told Mailbox to run, but Mailbox said he couldn't. He stuck to the ground. Mailbox sounded like Steve for some reason. Shovel whispered to himself, "I'm coming with you, Pail." Steve came and said, "Hello, little Shovel, wanna play?" Steve shoved Shovel into Mailbox's mouth, with Mailbox's mouth closed around Shovel's neck, with Steve holding Mailbox's mouth closed. When the two died, he sprinted into the house. We then saw Slippery Silk blindfolded as Steve asked all fake Happy, "Are you ready for your present, Slippery?" Slippery said, in Periwinkle's voice, "I'm always ready." Steve counted to 3. A knife sliced Slippery Silk in half. Steve was happy and said, "I will now kill myself to make him happy." Suddenly, the screen turned to black, and a rope sound came out of the blue. The Nick Jr. logo came up and was shaped like a knife, and on the handle there was a small text that reads, "Tu turno," which was Spanish for your turn. There were no credits. The screen then burst into static, and then the power went out. I will never forget that day. I remember it was November 17, 2001. That was the day my family changed. I got paranoid. I had to see a therapist. Nobody except for my family believes what I saw. Julia has a condition where she doesn't sleep a lot. Her husband is always trying to calm her down to make her sleep. The twins, Danielle and Hannah, are very crude and like gore. They're mean to certain people. My mom's always depressed and hates her job. She wants to be at home and cry all day. My dad got into a car crash on his way to work once, and is now in a wheelchair and can't walk. I wish this never happened. That baby just got smashed to bits by Julia, my sister. That Blue's Clues VHS is why my family is like this. At least it's gone now. I call that Blue's Clues No Clues. It's my nightmare. At least I'm alive. At least for now.